Good evening. I'm Alexandra Lewis.
And I'm Kim Christensen. A former bus aide in Littleton is accused of abusing a little boy with disabilities. A warning for you, this video is hard to see. The bus aide is now facing charges. This video was recorded last month on a Littleton school's bus. It shows Kira Jones sitting next to a 10-year-old boy who is nonverbal and has special needs. Jones begins hitting the boy's body and then hits him in the face a few times. Inglewood police are investigating and reviewing more videos. Several parents spoke at a news conference today, accusing Littleton schools of ignoring their complaints about injuries for months.
If I could say one thing to Littleton public schools, it would be, how dare you? How dare you fail my son in such an astonishing, preventable way?
Last week, the school district superintendent told parents over email that Jones had been fired. Police arrested her on suspicion of felony assault.
The lights are back on for most people in Colorado after this weekend's windstorm. Local business owners say they're still feeling the aftermath. The owner of 3 Mountain Sun Pub locations in Boulder, Kevin Daly, say that he got a heads up that power to his businesses would be cut off on Saturday. They lost power for about a day, and Daly said that was enough for the businesses to lose about $75,000 in revenue collectively. While he agrees with the decision to cut power, he says Xcel needs to do better when it comes to communication.
The amount of money that Xcel makes at our behest and the amount of money they gave back in distributions last year, they did $1.5 billion in dividends. They should have been able to have a communication system set up that was more sophisticated.
Daly said several other businesses experienced the same issues as his. Now he's calling for government officials to get Xcel to invest in better infrastructure so they can better communicate outages in the future.
We haven't forgotten the wind just yet, Lauren, but it was a pretty nice day today.
Beautiful.
We're trying to put that in our distant memory.
You know, today was a beautiful day, but just a little heads up, it's going to be windy again this weekend. Now, I don't think it'll be quite as windy as what we just saw, but something to keep in the back of our minds as we're watching for fire weather danger going into the end of this week. But this afternoon, we saw a beautiful day, a high of 63 degrees at DIA. Most of the urban corridor was in the lower 60s. We saw lots of lower to mid 60s across the Front Range and Eastern Plains this afternoon. It was a little cooler down in the Springs, a high of just 57 degrees there. We saw those 40s and 50s in the high country, 60s out west. Now, we take a look at our current temperatures at 9 o'clock. Of course, that sun is long gone for the day, so we're in the 40s and 50s across the eastern half of the state, 20s, 30s, 40s in the high country, upper 40s to middle 50s across the western slope. Outside of those temperatures, not a whole lot to look at on our HD Doppler radar. We do have some very slight rain chances as we go into the day tomorrow. We're also going to watch for some early mountain snow, and we do have a warm and windy weekend ahead. I'll have all of those details for you in my 7-day forecast.
Thanks, Lauren. A man in northern Colorado is accused of shooting and killing several of his neighbors' cows. The Lerma County Sheriff's Office says people living near Michael Hester on Buckhorn Road in Loveland told deputies Hester drove around on a UTV last week shooting at their livestock. Deputies say they found 7 cows dead and an 8th cow with critical injuries that needed to be put down. The Sheriff's Office says the cows belonged to 2 neighbors and they were worth more than $30,000. Deputies arrested Hester. He's now facing felony charges, including animal cruelty and trespassing.
It was standing room only at a Colorado Parks and Wildlife meeting today in Kremling to talk about wolves in our state. The CPW scheduled the meeting weeks ago. It comes after wolves killed 2 calves in Colorado in the last week.
If we ever want to be able to present any kind of a case to CPW or to the good people of the state of Colorado who have infested us with this pestilent herd.
CPW heard ranchers' concerns today, and wildlife officials told the crowd it was not the same wolf that killed 2 calves in Jackson and Grand counties. They also talked through the process of what a rancher will need to do if a wolf kills one of their livestock. Ranchers pressed CPW about why some policies and regulations haven't been finalized yet.
Shouldn't this process have been started beforehand? The answer, the blanket answer to that is yes. The kicker with that whole thing is that we're the agency that's being charged with creating all these rules and this process, but we're not the ones that started this whole mechanism at the beginning of it.
They told the crowd the CPW Commission plans to discuss next month whether ranchers can shoot a wolf at night with a thermal scope if they catch the wolf in the act of attacking their livestock.
City Council members in Northland passed an emergency ordinance to try and stop the state's proposed mental health housing facility. The transitional housing facility would be for those who have been discharged from higher level mental health hospitals, but it could also house 2 sex offenders, and that is causing concern. Last night, the City Council passed the ordinance barring any sex offenders from living within 1,000 feet of a school. This proposed project would fall within those parameters. Northland officials acknowledge the state does not have to abide by their ordinance according to state law. The state says they did not have immediate plans to put any sex offenders in the facility.
An attempt to impeach Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold failed tonight as expected. Republican House Minority Leader Rose Puglisi and Republican State Representative Ryan Armagost wanted to impeach Griswold. They accused her of malfeasance in the effort to keep former President Trump off the primary ballot. In reality, 6 Colorado voters and a liberal Washington, D.C. group sued Griswold to keep Trump from the ballot. The lawsuit went to the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled he was eligible. Griswold, as Secretary of State, printed Trump's name on the ballot, and all votes for Trump were counted. The final vote in committee was 8-3 along party lines.
Arizona has become the latest state to effectively ban nearly all abortions. Today, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled the state can enforce a law from 1864, making abortion illegal in all cases except to save the mother's life. The law provides no exceptions for rape or incest. Arizona will join 14 other states that have banned abortion at all stages of pregnancy. The court said enforcement won't begin for at least 2 weeks. A former director of the CU School of Medicine is now suing the university after she was fired for refusing to get the COVID-19 vaccine.
9 News reporter Ria Jha is live from CU's medical campus in Aurora. And Ria, she is claiming religious discrimination here.
That's right. She was the department director here for 6 years before getting fired in October 2021. I spoke with her attorney who says CU forced her to decide between her religious beliefs and her job.
It was jab or job.
When the University of Colorado announced its COVID vaccination policy back in April 2021, Alyse Brennecke knew it was one shot she wasn't willing to take.
Ms. Brennecke applied for religious exemption in August of 2021 in preparation or in advance of that September 1st deadline to be vaccinated.
Brennecke served as the director of clinical research in the Department of OB-GYN. Her attorney explains the way the vaccine was developed using aborted fetal tissue is against her religion.
This represented a disruption of God's sacred design for life, and as a result, she did not want to participate in receiving those kinds of pharmaceuticals.
Within 3 hours, her request was denied. The university's policy stated religious exemption would apply to someone whose religion opposed all immunizations. In a lawsuit Brennecke filed against the university last week, she claims this was a violation of her rights.
Employers aren't allowed to decide whether the religious beliefs are legitimate. They're only allowed to determine whether those beliefs are sincere, and if so, they're required to seek an accommodation that's not an undue burden to the employer.
After 2 warnings from the university, Brennecke was fired on October 20th, 2021. She's one of several employees now suing the university for termination.
These people have meaningful careers, they have meaningful educations, they had a meaningful record, they're doing things that are important to the world, and they were threatened with and ultimately lost their jobs.
In a statement, the university said the vaccination policy at their medical campus was critical to providing a safe and healthy place to protect their patients. This suit comes nearly 3 years after Brennecke was originally fired, when vaccination requirements have mostly waned. However, her attorney is still fighting for a judgment.
If a federal court in Colorado says, you know what, these rights no longer exist, then those protections will have substantially been eroded.
Brennecke is seeking monetary damages for loss of pay, emotional suffering, among other losses. She's the only plaintiff named in her lawsuit, but in the other lawsuit filed against the university, there are 11 unnamed plaintiffs, including physicians, nurses, and employees in other administrative roles within the Anschutz Medical Campus. Reporting live in Aurora, Ria Jha, 9 News.
Ria, thank you.